Hi YouTube, and welcome to the first video in the Myths of the Mineral Kingdoms video series. And today we're going to be talking about amber, and I've taken a little display piece out of the case today to show you here. And this is a piece of amber which I very recently acquired from Mexico, and it has small wood flakes which are included in that. It's very much opaque, but I still think it's a beautiful specimen here. When you hold it up to the light, you can see that very characteristic amber color. And that color has fascinated mankind for a very, very long time. Now, what I like to focus on here for this series is the myths, the legends, the stories that surround these beautiful objects. And amber has a lot of folktales, legends, myths that come along with it. And that is, I believe, just a consequence of it having been around in human civilization for such a tremendous amount of time. Now, the color of amber is very characteristic. It has its own name, obviously. The color itself is called amber as well. And because of that color, people would associate that with the sun, particularly in ancient Greece, where an Athenian politician and general who fought in the Peloponnesian Wars, Nicias, he was very fascinated with amber, and he had a theory concerning how it was made. Amber is a liquid produced by the rays of the sun, and that these rays, at the moment of the sun's setting, striking with the greatest force upon the surface of the soil, leave upon it an unctuous sweat, which is carried off by the tides of the ocean, and thrown up upon the shores of Germany. So how does amber form? We know it's not from sunlight striking rocks, and amber is actually tree resin, which is separate from tree sap, which is a common misconception that amber is created from tree sap. Resin and sap have two different functions within a tree, and these are generally in Cretaceous or earlier period trees, coniferous tree resins, which have solidified and fossilized under layers and layers of sediment, and that creates a high amount of pressure, and that pressure creates a high amount of heat, and over a sustained period of time, that will transform the resin into copal and then into amber. And if an insect is unlucky enough to be caught up in this process early on, when the resin is still in a highly viscous state, then that's when we create those beautiful and quite famous inclusions. So I want to bring this back to the sun, but before we do that, we need to talk about the ocean, which is where so much of the world's amber came from historically, and indeed still comes from to this day. And when I was looking into legends and myths that I wanted to tell today, I came across two myths, and one of those is very focused on the ocean aspect, and one is very focused on the solar aspect. Although it's interesting to see that there are incredible similarities between these two stories. So to illustrate the geography of the areas that I'm going to be speaking about today, I thought it would be perfect to show you them on this mineral globe, which I inherited from my grandfather. So each of the countries is represented by minerals which have been cut into the actual borders and shapes of the countries at the time. So we have ancient Greece, and then up from there we have Lithuania. So we begin our story in Lithuania. This story was first recorded in 1842, although obviously it had been told for some time before that, and it's the story of Jūratė and Kastytis. The sea goddess Jūratė ruled the Baltic Sea from her underwater amber palace. One day, a fisherman named Kastytis was singing in his boat. When the sea goddess heard the song, she fell in love with this fisherman, even though she knew that the king of the gods, Perkunas, had declared it was forbidden for a mortal to love an immortal. But because of his singing, and because it sounded so sweet to her ears, she brought him down under the sea to her palace, where they spent some time together in great happiness. Now, unfortunately for them, the god Procunus, most powerful of the Lithuanian pantheon, discovered their secret. Procunus cast down the mortal man with a bolt of lightning. He smashed the beautiful amber palace and chained Jūratė to the rocky ruins. Amber from that palace still washes up on the shores of the Baltic. Now, that is one version of the tale. In another version, Jūratė weeps amber tears for her lover Kastytis. In still another version, Kastytis himself is actually alive at the end of the tale. So, upon reading the version where Jūratė weeps tears of amber, I immediately saw a connection to another myth, this one a Greek tragedy by Euripides. And this play is Phaethon, who was the son of the sun god Helios. So I'm going to give you an abbreviated version of the tale, but if you would like to read a very excellent translation, I highly recommend Euripides' Phaethon, and this is a translation by Vlanes, who is a Russian translator. Now, this translation of Phaethon is available as an ebook, which is how I read it. It's only 62 pages, which means it's very digestible, and I highly recommend that you pick up a copy and read it for yourself, especially for the final monologue given by Helios. Now the part of the story which relates to Amber comes right near the end, and it is part of that very powerful monologue. So when I get to that part of the story, I'm just going to quote it straight from Vlades, because I think that his translation and Euripides' original words, I cannot do a better justice to that. But for the sake of time, I will be abbreviating the rest of the tale. In the land of Ethiopia, there lived Clemens, who was the daughter of the god of the ocean. One day, Helios, god of the sun, saw her beauty and descended to earth, where the two conceived a child. Her father Oceanus knew that he must marry her off quickly, and so he married her to the king of the Ethiopians, Merops. When her child was born, she told her new husband Merops that the child was his son. When the boy was much older, it was time for him to marry, and Helios and Merops divined a marriage for him. He was to marry any one of the 7 Heliads who were Helios's divine daughters. To Merops, this meant that his son, his line, his lineage would be forever married to that of the gods, lifting him up to divine status. Now, Phaethon had grown up discontented despite the luxuries of being raised in a royal household. He felt drawn towards the sky, to the divine, and even though his marriage was proposed to a Heliad of his choosing, he felt himself unworthy of that calling. So, to boost his spirits, to aid in his decision, his mother Clemens confessed to him. She told him the secret of his true parentage. Now, having grown up a mortal man, Phaethon could not accept that he was in fact a demigod without hearing it from Helios himself. Under the pretext of choosing for himself the bride which was to become his queen, he traveled with his tutor as companion to the home of Helios himself, where Helios did in fact confirm that he was the child's father. Now, at the height of their passions, Helios had promised Clemens that she could have any wish which she desired from him, and that God's word and promise were binding. So she gave it to Phaethon, and he asked his divine father that he be allowed to ride the solar chariot for one day. Unable to refuse Phaethon, Helios granted the wish and handed over the reins while he followed behind on a winged horse named Sirius. Phaethon may in fact have been a demigod, but he was raised immortal, and the horses were so wild that Helios himself could barely control them. After he raised off the ground, he lost control and began spinning towards the earth. Now, pulling the sun behind him, this was a very, very dangerous position because the wheat in the farmers' fields which they passed burst into flame. From Olympus, Zeus saw this folly. He saw that the world of man was in danger of being engulfed in fire. And so he took a lightning bolt and he struck the chariot down. Phaethon and the chariot, burning, fell from the sky and crashed into the river below. When the old tutor returned to the palace, he told Clemens in secret the story of her son's death, and she ordered that his body be hidden in the gold vaults of the palace. However, even through the thick vault doors, the smoke from his charred body made its way into the hall, where a passing slave saw it and brought it to the attention of Merops. Saddened and enraged by his son's death, Merops took a blade and pressed it against Clemens' throat, threatening to end her life. It was only then that Helios himself entered the room. He confessed his parentage, spoke about Phaethon's bravery, and acknowledged that Merops was indeed the boy's father, even if he still had Helios' divine blood. Turning to the corpse of his fallen son, he said, "I wanted you to choose one Heliad as a wife, yet there was no time for you to make your choice. Therefore, I am resolved to give you all the 7. I'll turn them into poplars, let them spread their boughs above your marbled tomb, and shed unceasing tears, coagulating constantly as yellow amber." So, there we have it. That was the story of Phaethon, and as you can see at the end, the Heliads, the daughters of Helios, and as it might be pointed out, Phaethon's own sisters, are turned into poplars where they somehow weep, despite being turned into trees, these coagulated tears of amber. Now I want to end with a quick comparison of the two myths. Now obviously both heroes of the story, Kastytis and Phaethon, are struck down by a thunder god. Now that's very, very interesting. Both those thunder gods are the head of their respective pantheon. Amber is obviously associated with both. There is a ocean woman in each. Clemens was an Oceanide, obviously being the son of the god of the ocean, and Jūratė was a goddess in her own right and ruler of the oceans. So amber is connected with its source in both of these legends, one where it's coming from the sun due to its color, and another where it is being swept up from the ocean, which is how it would have been found historically. So thank you so much for watching this video. I am researching more crystals and more minerals to bring to you in a similar manner. This is a pilot of sorts, so please tell me what you liked about this video, what you'd like to see more of, what changes you would like to see to this show, and basically if you have any suggestions, any feedback, leave them down below. You can suggest crystals, minerals, if you have a myth you want me to discuss, anything to do with the mineral kingdom, fairy tales, legends, anything, it's all on board. I'd love to have any sort of discussion in this manner with you guys. Please like the video and subscribe to this channel. This is just getting started, and I will see you in the next video.